Today we are going to be taking a look at the 2025 Honda Accord. Now there have been a couple updates for the Accord's lineup in 2025 for the 2025 model year, but none of them affect this model. This is the touring model, the highest end Honda Accord with all of the bells and whistles that Honda offers. All of the changes in the lineup happen at the other end. The base trim level has been axed for 2025 and there is a new trim level, the SE trim level, which brings some sporty design elements in at a lower price point. But again, the touring, this top of the line model, has not changed. So you might be thinking, why are we taking a look at this car if there's nothing new? Well, I personally think it is really interesting to take a look at a car a couple of years after it came out. This car was launched at the very end of 2022 for the 2023 model year. To take a look at a car a couple of years after it came out to see how it stacks up in the modern age. Because this, again, is the nicest, the most expensive, the top of the line Honda Accord that Honda sells right now. And the industry has changed a bit in the past 2 years. So in the context of all the vehicles that have come out, namely for this Accord, the new Camry, I really want to know, how does this Accord Touring stack up? So let's take a detailed walk around of the 2025 Honda Accord Touring. Now to start, I have to say I really do love the design of the 11th generation Honda Accord. I prefer it to the 10th generation. I have always thought it a very handsome vehicle, and as there are no changes for 2025, this vehicle remains a very handsome one. I just really like the proportions of the car. It has a really nice long hood that's very low. I love the sleek and thin headlights, and the grille is pretty angular and aggressive. Coming along to the side, you get 19-inch rims on this Touring, and I have to say, even though it does have a pretty thin side wall, the ride is still really good on this Accord. And again, the profile of this car, I just think it's really elegant. Definitely pretty swoopy here towards the back, and it does eat into rear seat headroom a little bit, but I am still a big fan. And I do really like this color. This color is actually the only option on this Accord Touring. Everything else comes standard with the Touring trim level. And then around back, the elegant design continues. I'm a fan of the very thin light bar around back, although I do think the Honda logo looks a little small. I think they could have put a little bit of a bigger logo on there, but here we can see this is the Touring model, and the only way to get the Touring model is with the hybrid engine. And of course, this is an Accord. The exhaust tips are hidden on the hybrid Accords, and I think on all Accords, and there's actually only one here on the right. But yeah, overall, I really do think this is an elegant car. My favorite trim level in terms of the design are the Sport trim levels. You can get a Sport and a Sport L trim level. Those also have 19-inch rims that are dark and more dark trim elements, and those just look a little aggressive. But this does definitely feel like a grown-up car. I always have thought that a Honda Accord, a midsize sedan, it's a rather sophisticated vehicle. You know, you opt for one of these cars over a crossover, over a smaller vehicle, because you're a little more grown up, and this Accord definitely seems like a grown-up, sophisticated vehicle. I think it is designed above its price point. I really think they're elegant. Every time I see one on the road, I just am wowed at the fact that that is what the Honda Accord looks like. I personally really like it, and I'm glad that Honda really hasn't done any changes to the car in the 2 years it's been out, because it is such a beautiful design in my opinion. And here is that hybrid powertrain. It is a 2-liter 4-cylinder paired with 2 electric motors that combine to produce 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque. Those are smaller figures than the upgraded engine of the 10th generation Accord. This is the 11th generation Accord. The 10th generation Accord had an optional 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, but I would say these figures are adequate for this car. I have not really wanted for power while driving this Accord hybrid, and a benefit of this hybrid system is the fuel economy. On this Touring model, you're looking at 44 mpg combined, 41 on the highway, 46 in the city. Hybrids are more efficient in town than they are on the freeway, and that hybrid fuel economy number actually bumps up a bit more if you go for a lower trim level Accord hybrid. I think these 19-inch rims and just the car's a little heavier with all of the options ticked on this Touring, those hurt the MPG just a little bit, but still 44 MPG on a mid-size sedan, that's pretty good, and that is definitely one of the benefits of the Accord hybrid. The other powertrain is just a normal 4-cylinder. Makes about 192 horsepower, so you're not losing that much horsepower when you jump down, although I think this engine is a lot smoother as a result of having the hybrid assist. Now, comparing those power figures to the new Toyota Camry. So the Camry is only available with a hybrid system now, and in a front-wheel drive application, the Camry produces 225 horsepower, so more horsepower than this Accord, but only 163 pound-feet of torque, which is definitely a lot less. That's almost 60 pound-feet of torque less than what this Accord makes, and that's what you're going to feel when you are accelerating and pulling off the line, is the torque. So I think this Accord is going to feel a little bit punchier and a little quicker off the line than that Camry. And in an all-wheel drive setting, the Camry makes the same 163 pound-feet of torque figure and 232 horsepower. So again, another bump in horsepower over this Accord, but I really don't think you're going to notice it that much, especially because this Accord is so much stronger in the pound-feet of torque category. But that does bring up one very interesting thing about the Camry, the new Camry, versus this Accord hybrid, and that is that the Camry is available with all-wheel drive. And again, you are only getting a hybrid system in the new Camry, so you're still getting a lot of fuel economy benefits in that Toyota Camry, but this Accord is only available in front-wheel drive. Honda does not make a all-wheel drive sedan. The only way to get all-wheel drive in a Honda is to go for a crossover and SUV, and if you're wanting a hybrid, the only way to get a hybrid all-wheel drive vehicle is in the form of the CR-V from Honda. So that is one area where the Accord doesn't necessarily have as many features as its new Camry competitor. All right, but now let's start poking around inside this Accord. So opening up the trunk, it does have a nice spring-loaded mechanism, although you can see the arms of the trunk, they are not enclosed, so you would have to worry about things on the inside, I know it's a little dark, of the trunk being crushed when these arms do close down. This isn't, again, a luxury vehicle, so Honda isn't going to put all of the bells and whistles in this Accord, even though this is the touring model. So this Accord, I know it's a little dark, but it has 16.7 cubic feet of storage in the trunk, which is 1.7 more cubic feet than you would get in the Toyota Camry. So it's a bit more spacious, and the opening is really big too. I am a fan of how usable this trunk is, and definitely a good size. I prefer a sedan. I am a sedan guy. I really like that the cargo area is enclosed. There's no windows into it, and I just prefer the look of a sedan too. So I love that Honda is still offering a mid-size sedan. I love these types of vehicles. And there's actually a lot of competition in this space. It's not just the new Camry. Hyundai Sonata is a very competitive vehicle, the Kia K5, the Nissan Altima. So there's a lot of cars still in this category, even though the American brands have all pulled out. And this Accord has a pretty strong offering, and that is a pretty spacious trunk for a mid-size sedan. All right, and let's now climb into the back of this Honda Accord. So this front seat is adjusted to my ideal driving position, except this car has a feature where whenever you get out of the car, it slides the chair a little back. So just keep that in mind as I climb into the vehicle, and I'm actually gonna make you guys a bit wider. And even with the driver's seat pushed back a little bit, I still have plenty of knee room behind this driver's seat. And if I sit upright though, my head is hitting the ceiling here in the back of this Honda Accord. Again, it's that sloping roofline does kind of affect headroom of this Accord, and the top of my head is definitely pressed up against the roof. That's a little disappointing. You want a mid-size sedan to be able to fit 4 full-size adults comfortably. And like, I could sit back here for a half hour, no problem. But as you start to get into the longer road trip settings, this would start to definitely get a bit annoying. But let's look at other luxuries you have in the back of this Accord. You have air vents back here, no third zone climate control in the Accord Touring, but there are air vents. I will say the design of this is definitely looking a little dated. This is scratchy black plastics, and just these vents look kind of like they're from the 90s. You do have dual USB-C charging outlets though, so that is definitely good to see. If I fold down this center armrest, we get a pair of cup holders. Those look very spacious. That's also nice. And on the door itself, we have 3-level heated outboard seats for the back seats of this Accord. Also nice to see, this is like a beige leather, not my favorite, or a leatherette. I don't think it's real leather. It's not my favorite color, but there are multiple colors to choose from. But these seats are very comfortable, I am happy to report. You only get one map pocket in this Accord, none on the back of the driver's seat. That's kind of weird. But overall, it's a very comfortable back seat. Again, not quite enough headroom for me at 6'2", which is a little disappointing. But I think for most people, it probably would be plenty comfortable back here. All right, but it is up front that you are going to be spending most of your time, so let's climb up there now. And you definitely notice this is a pretty low vehicle. I think even for midsize sedans, this is a low car, and you notice that getting into the car, but it's good for you to climb into and out of low places. That will just keep you healthy. And here is the interior. Let me close the door. The interior of the 2025 Honda Accord. Now, someone commented on one of my short form videos I posted with this car that this interior looks like it was made in 2015. And it's definitely not the most modern in here, no, but I personally, as someone who covers the new car industry and is constantly around brand new vehicles that have just been redesigned, I personally really love this interior's simplicity and functionality. You can see we have physical climate controls, 2-zone climate controls, all with physical buttons, knobs to change the temperature. You have heated and cooled seats that are also buttons. You can turn on and off the climate controls with another button. And you have, although it is very small, an actual physical volume knob. Honda did try to do away with the volume knob for a little bit, but I'm glad to see it here. And a real shifter. This is not some electronic dinky little thing. I do really like having this actual shifter. It's very satisfying while driving. If I remove my keys, we can see that there's pretty decent sized cup holders and another pair of USB-C charging outlets along with a wireless charger. I also actually am a fan of the air vent design. It's like a diamond pattern that goes the whole width of the front of the dash. That's pretty nice and very easy then to control your airflow. Again, functionality is the name of the game for this Accord's interior, and I definitely appreciate that. On the steering wheel, you have very easy to understand and use buttons. Also, you get a heated steering wheel on this touring model. Very simple virtual instrument cluster, digital instrument cluster. The design isn't necessarily my favorite. There's just a lot of information that Honda throws at you. It could be a little simpler, but overall it is functional. And I would say that's the same thing for Honda's native infotainment system. There's just a lot of information and it's not displayed the best, but you can get almost full screen Apple CarPlay. This line of controls stays up no matter what you have displayed. But then CarPlay will take up the rest of this. This is about a 12-inch infotainment system, which is bigger than something you would get on actually like the Honda Pilot, which is Honda's most expensive vehicle. Interestingly, they put the smaller infotainment system, the 9-inch one that you get on a CR-V and a Civic, in the Pilot. Not exactly sure why they did that, but this Accord has a nicer system, and you definitely notice those added 3 inches on the infotainment system. It just makes everything bigger, and CarPlay is quite beautiful on this screen. Very functional, again, very easy to use. Up here, so in some ways this interior is feeling dated, maybe just because it's so simply laid out, but in other ways it's feeling dated just because of the controls. Like these controls right here and the font on them to control when the lights turn on, whether it's the door, whether they're just on or whether they're off completely, that just feels like about in a car that came out 20 years ago. Definitely not the newest design of a button. Like a Hyundai definitely has a more modern interaction for something like that. We do have a sunglass holder up here as well, and we have a standard size sunroof that opens, obviously. I prefer keeping the shade closed all the time. I'm not a huge sunroof person. That's just my personal preference though. And then here, so we have our drive mode buttons. We have a sport mode, a normal mode, which is what I've been driving in, and an economy mode. So I've just been driving in normal mode most of the time. Sport mode keeps the engine running more and definitely will give you more power when you need it. But most of the time, I think normal mode is fine. We have our electronic parking brake here, and we have this button where you can kind of put the car into EV mode, or you can cycle through from auto to EV to try to use up the car's battery if you think that is most efficient. But auto is good most of the time. I'd say the car is pretty smart about when it should be using battery versus when the engine should be on. And you have 2 fuel gauges in this car, which is kind of cool. So this is your fuel gauge for your fuel. And then on the other side, you have the gauge for the hybrid battery, which is kind of cool. So you can see how much charge you have in that battery. And then that also helps you understand if the engine is running when you don't think it should be. Well, maybe it's because your battery is low. So I do like that they give you that information. Another thing I do like about this instrument cluster, you can see there's a car in the center of the instrument cluster and its brake lights are on, and that's because I have my foot on the brake. If I take my foot off the brake, well, the brake lights turn off. And if I put my turn signal on, the turn signal of that Honda Accord in the instrument cluster also turns on. So that's a pretty neat detail, something that not all car companies do. I do like that. I don't know necessarily the practical purpose of it, but I think it's kind of cool. And so that's kind of the interior. These seats are very comfortable. We have adjustable lumbar support on the driver's side. I wish it was a bit more intense. I wish it came out a little bit more, but I like that it does have adjustable lumbar support. And the steering wheel overall, again, very simple, very functional, a good size to it. And overall, I like the driving position too. Like overall, really good, easy, simple to use. And I think that's what people love about Hondas, is that nothing is unfamiliar in here. Everything makes sense and is as it should be. And that's what Honda does so well. And it's honestly a little refreshing in 2025, or well, it's 2024 when I'm filming this, but you know, it'll probably be almost 2025 when this video goes up. It's refreshing to see a car so simply laid out, so many tactile controls as well. That makes it really easy to use the car and operate all of those controls while driving. Something like a Hyundai Sonata definitely has a more flashy interior than this, but is it easier to use while driving? I don't think so. And I appreciate that the Accord has an interior like this. All right, so there you have the 2025 Honda Accord. Now we must talk about price. The vehicle starts right around $28,000 for the base LX trim level. If you want a hybrid Accord, the lowest trim level is going to be about $33,600 for the sport hybrid trim level. That is the least expensive hybrid trim level. And this touring model starts right around $39,000. Add in this optional gray paint and the destination and handling fee, and you're looking at right around $41,000 for this fully loaded Honda Accord Touring. Now that is definitely a lot of money. The average new car price has almost reached $50,000 in the United States. So when you compare $41,000 for a fully loaded model to that price, well, that starts to make a little more sense. It still feels like a lot of money to spend on a mid-size sedan. On the Toyota side of things, the new Camry also starts right around $28,000. But again, that model is a standard hybrid, getting all of the MPG benefits that the base Accord doesn't necessarily have. So that is something to keep in mind. Personally, I like the styling of this Accord more. I love the interior too. It's very simple. It feels a little bit more sophisticated than the Camry, although the Camry is still a really good car. It comes down, I think, to personal preference and price. If you're looking for a hybrid sedan at a good price, well, the Camry is definitely going to be able to get you into that hybrid midsize category at a lower price point than this Accord. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.